It's weird. The more we play, the more I don't like this documentary style. I prefer Age of Empires 2. I prefer the biographies of so-called great heroes versus this documentary style. This documentary style theoretically provides a more nuanced political history, but it's falling into too many of the traps that documentaries have, especially kind of short or cheaply made documentaries, in order for me to be thrilled with it. Exactly, right? Rome and the Han sent envoys to each other. Indian beads end up in Viking Age Scandinavia, and in fact in Bronze Age Scandinavia. Nutmeg exists in enormous quantities in antique and medieval Europe. It's not like the Mongols are forging anything. It's complicated, right? I don't want to say anything because, right, it is easy to start understating the Mongol significance, and that would be a mistake because, like, everywhere the Mongols touched has an incredibly strong cultural memory of the Mongols. And that influences a lot of developments for the next 200 years. Right, into the 1500s, someplace into the 1600s. Right, that the memory of the Mongols has a pretty substantial impact in the choices later cultures are making, or Mongol successor states and successor peoples are making. So the Mongols are crucially important in Eurasian history. But at the same time, they are not unique in being places of simultaneous tolerance and brutality. They are unique perhaps in scale, but not in kind. So, don't know. It is weird. As usual, documentaries and historically claiming campaigns are a problem. Hey look, you want to watch this one again? See if it gets better on the second watch?
The Mongol army smashed through Shangyan's defenses and captured the city. Kublai Khan then pursued the remnants of the Song dynasty across southern China. In 1279, at the Battle of Yamen, the Mongols destroyed the last defenders of the Song.
Perfect, thank you,
Kublai
AC.
Khan now ruled over all China, founding the Yuan dynasty.
Right. I do like this, by the way, these sort of reconstructed spaces. I mean, look at how much cooler that is. There's so much cooler.
The Mongols demonstrated civility and religious tolerance, but also brutality and violence, typifying the contradictions within the Mongol Empire. Since Genghis Khan first united the Mongolian tribes, they had made incredible advances in technology and trade. And they created indelible connections between East and West. At its height, almost 100 million people lived under Mongol rule, a quarter of the world's population.
That's what it is.
The Mongol Empire endured for less than 200 years, before fragmenting into smaller territories. But its legend continues to this day.
Figured out what bothered me. We'll talk about it as soon as we finish this.
Was to unite the world into one empire. Yet he always returned to the Mongolian steppe, where the endless grasslands lay beneath the eternal sky. And from where he created one of the largest empires the world has ever known.
Right. So, the thing that's been bothering me, quietly, that I have not really processed until just now, is Age of Empires 4's development team has partnered with, I think it's the University of Arizona, to give an undergraduate introductory history course based around Age of Empires 4. That is super cool, super ambitious bit of archeo gaming and gaming pedagogy, and I applaud them for that. However, the material in the game so far is what I'll give to an introductory high school world history course. That's what it is, right? Because they claimed they've partnered with a university, I've been reading the claims as a professional working in an undergraduate context. And on that standard, it falls very short. As an intro world history high school class, this is right on the money on the level of detail that is, generally speaking, worth going for, or that very usually is gone for. I think you'll probably push it a little more nuanced, but 14-year-olds don't know a whole lot. No offense to any 14-year-olds, sorry, it's just true. I'm 25, but I still don't know a lot. But, right, they're not hitting the threshold that I'm feeling like they need to hit for the thing they're trying to do. Yeah, high school history is not good. This is better than quite a bit of high school history. But, right, that's the level of complexity that they're aiming at, is a freshman or sophomore level high school course. Not a freshman or sophomore university course. And now, to Savage's question. What are the factors that lead one state-like entity to going on a mass conquest spree? Not everyone does this, so there must be a reason. The answer is that there is no one reason. Right? There is not a coherent set of factors that are going to be true for any two cultures, much less every culture that has done imperialism. Right? The motivations on an individual and a cultural level are immensely complex and unique to every circumstance. In the case of the Mongol Empire, the secret history claims that's because Genghis Khan had a dream that he was prophesied to become the sole ruler of the entire world. And so he, manipulated extant social contexts and persuaded people of that dream and enacted it. In the case of, say, Roman imperial expansion, it's a lot of individuals seeking wealth and renown for themselves, turning into a machine, specifically like consuls, trying to increase their own power through conquest, especially folks like Caesar, and then using the wealth gained in that conquest to further political ambitions in Rome, and that collaborates to create a machine that relies on perpetually expanding. So, right, Rome's imperial expansion is dramatically different from the Mongol expansion, despite the two perhaps seeming comparable. British early modern imperialism, meanwhile, is going to look totally different. So, right, there is no individual set of factors that will trigger this. It's incredibly complex confluence of factors, any number of which could have been the immediate catalyst over a span of anywhere from 2 generations to 3 centuries. And KJ, right, if you had AP classes, I expect this falls a hair short of AP classes, right? High-level world history courses in high school are going to be able to do things that this can't. But I think it does pair pretty well on basic world history stuff. Within the last couple of years, I've gotten experience of what high school, like, basic world history looks like again. This is pretty much, like, the high end of average. From my experience. Anyway. How does this rate compare to the average pop history documentary? It is pretty much right. That's the other place where it is basically dead on par. Right. In some things, it's actually really, really right on the money. In that, you know, our love of the Great Wall. Our love of the Great Wall is a really good example of that. As is the focus on military conquest, hyping up the mystery of it all. And then the portrayal of things, of the non-unique factors as unique. Right. This one is better than a lot in that it doesn't really have a lot of things that I would say are just like factually inaccurate. So as far as that goes, congratulations. And they do some things that are genuinely interesting or neat, or that being played successfully put the player into a similar enough mentality to be genuinely informative. However, I think the big thing, the big negative on trying to do a documentary style in Age of Empires is that it largely is not integrating the documentary bits. Like, what does this?
The vast Mongol Empire.
What does this have to do with the sack of Kiev?
But it was governed by bureaucracy. Good communications across the empire were vital. And that was the job of the Yam Riders.
Right, what does this have to do? Well, this is cool. And probably,
Yam
well,
was an incredibly well-organized postal system, introduced by Genghis Khan over 800 years ago.
a well-done documentary
It consisted
short.
of a network of relay stations, linked by high-speed riders.
But what does this have to do with
They were known as the arrow
the
messengers.
siege of Kiev
You know, they rode at
and the
such a breezy
destructive
pace that
tendencies
They would have
of
to use these cloths to support their
the
abdomen,
Mongols?
their spine, and their internal organs.
Yam messengers wore a sash of bells, so they could be heard approaching from a distance. With this advance warning, a fresh relay horse could be ready as soon as they arrived.
Remounting like this allows us to travel several relays each day.
With a constant stream of riders, official messages could be carried quickly to and from all corners of the empire. In China alone, the Yam had over 14,000 relay depots and over 50,000 horses.
Cool.
In some areas, the relay stations were much closer together. Here, the system also used fast runners. However, it was the hard-riding couriers that made the Yam such a rapid communications web.
So, right,
And
this
to
is a
ensure
really
it
well
ran
done
smoothly,
documentary bit.
Riders carried a medallion, the Paisa. Paisas acted as passports and gave the owner authority to demand goods and services from the Yam stations and the local population. The Yam messengers were the lifeblood that flowed through the great Mongol Empire.
Right? I don't have any complaints about that. That matches my knowledge pretty much to a T, which, not that my knowledge is particularly thorough, but, you know, it is cool. It highlights something neat. But it doesn't integrate this into the actual gameplay. I feel like there's room for so much more to be done, rather than just aping other styles, right? Other media, and replicating what they do in shorts that may or may not have a relationship here. with each scenario, they could do more. They could do way more. And Sabotage, can you make a historically themed RTS actually properly represent history gameplay-wise? I don't know the answer to that. It is a valid question. I think it's a question that's worth exploring. Right? I think one of the big things that would have to be done is to find a way to have RTS mechanics that move away from exclusively military as the goal of the RTS, right? How does that look? How do you achieve what would be other sorts of victory or conflict that exist? Right. I think there is way more room for experimentation within the medium than what is being given to us, which is understandable, right? This is Age of Empires. It's an established franchise with established franchise expectations. But I'd be curious to see how, with the same basic outlines, they're able to do more. I think within the Age of Empires franchise, a couple things can be done to really bump up the nuance. The first one, don't time jump, right? This one was really sneaky. Look at this. 1153, 1216, 1215, 1217. This one I don't mind so much because it gives one big battle and then kind of resets the story and runs from there. But this one was egregious. Like, this one was really sneaky and not in a good way. So, thing one, don't time skip in constructing your narrative. Choose your moments, put them in chronological order, make sure you're telling the story correctly. So, right, don't create the idea that Prince John is alive, and when he's alive, by making him alive here, and then just kind of letting people assume he was alive in the previous one, and then saying, oh, he dies. He was dead by this siege, and the game just quietly ignores that. Thing number two. Don't highlight exclusively victories. Right? What does an RTS scenario look like where you have objectives that let you feel like you've accomplished something despite overall losing? Interesting question. Really would complicate the narratives provided here. Step 3. Make sure that the intro and outro of each scenario properly contextualize the... Actually, let's write these down. Give me just a sec, chat. We're going to open this guy back up. Because you don't need to see this. You don't need... We're going to put on the music again, and we're going to open up Google Docs. Alright. Things we can do. Typing is hard. Due to improve without reworking the basic idea of the franchise. So, thing one. Thing two, don't time skip in order to create misleading narratives. Thing three, Let's see, what is number thing 3 was, that. Oh yeah. Intro and outro properly contextualize an event. Thing 4, don't get too broad. Telling 300 years, superficially is worse than telling 20 in more depth. Right? Do you agree, Chad? So far, so good. What else does anyone have? I'm actually gonna slide this way. I think thing 5 in my mind, and I'm open to discussion here. And by the way, chat, everyone's ideas are worth it here, so no lurking, please. If you are able to type, and of course if you want to, please do participate in this conversation, because it will make it more fun for all of us to get more ideas flowing rather than me just talking at you for the last handful of minutes. Obviously Grand Chicken Lord. 50-foot tall Ra stomping around Egypt? Totally historically accurate. No problems here. Also, let me quick add... Sorry. Realize I do not have chat up on this one, so give me just a sec while I give chat their well-deserved visual in the stream box. Well, hello, chat. So we'll actually zoom out on this a bit to center that above my head, so that chat can all see. You can all see. Now, where is chat? You should be invisible now. Chat, try saying something. There we go. Yeah. I think the gameplay itself. Gameplay. Historical resonance. I can actually give an exact in the videos here, but could do more. I think, yeah, Savage Aid, a really good example of that going on in this game is actually in the Angevin campaign, Sack of York. York Castle sucks, and it incentivizes brutally murdering brutally destroying the whole town, like William did during the harrying. Right, so there's a really good example of that actually being done in the game, but I agree. More like this. 3. Show diversities. As AC mentioned way earlier, I think there was, I think there is something to be said, right, where, say, the Mongols capture, or Mongol allied Chinese village, still looks and speaks Chinese. Good start. more. Show women in combat, especially when they're mentioned in the intro. This is basic stuff. I think Ismail was speaking, I think he was speaking Arabic, because that's what's recorded. I'm pretty sure it's Arabic, because I don't think they recorded lines in Persian for the game, that they just used an Abbasid unit for Ismail. Shadow Reaper, they put in something to the effect of, if you include myths, don't try and cling to historical accuracy tags. See, I don't want to go that far because I am a big proponent of including myths is not always... Well, define myth for me. Right, are we talking about popular conceptions that are not part of accepted by scholarship these days? Or are we talking proper, like, folklore? Proper folklore. Right, so I am not as bothered by this as a lot of people. Because I am a big proponent of the idea that one of the things games can do really well is let us process the mindscapes of past people. And to that end, there's a huge thing where, you know, even though monsters cannot be real because they violate laws of the natural world as we understand it, they are real within the psychologies of past cultures. And so if you are trying to situate the player within that past culture, including a folkloric figure or a monster or something that they would have believed to be real, that we now know isn't, is not a historical inaccuracy. It is actually a bit of good design in my mind that makes me more forgiving to your game because it says to me that you're doing something interesting. Additionally, that's not actually a problem Age of Empires has been having, right? Age of Empires specifically, right? There are other games where, you know, maybe this is a problem. Cough, New World, cough. Or Legacy of Kain, or something, right? But that's not a problem Age of Empires has. So, we're not gonna put it in here, but it is an appreciated and good point. I suppose actually we can put it in as just be coherent as to what conception of history you're going for. Yes, transparency, I agree. What if Age of Empires had a further reading tab in its campaign info pages? I love that one, my name is you. Right. I just threw that extra bit in because if we click actually back into the game for just a second... Right, I'm just gonna load up one of these real quick. Yeah, let's do this.
Crippled by the loss of their supply route, the twin cities of...
what if right here, or on the stat screen, right? One of those two places, either right here on this page, or elsewhere on the like stat screen at the end. What if they had a further reading tab? Right? So you can see your stats, your progression, the pages from history, and then a little box that said further reading. That would just have a little pop-up of 3 or 4 sources. Right? Doesn't have to be everything they read, because it's not possible for a large development team to have a master list of everything they read. But 3 or 4. Just a couple of things in order to say, hey, you can go further. Right? You could do that. I think that would be awesome. What's up next on other improvements? Certainly, right, just have better content flow, is an easy thing to say, a hard thing to actually do. But right, so I don't want to just say, hey, just like, do better research. Your problem is that your research was not good enough, because that's not actually an answer. And what I really want is for things that lean into Age of Empires. Right? What stories is Age of Empires really good at telling? And how can we use the stories Age of Empires is really good at telling to have a better history in Age of Empires? Yeah, I mean, right, Sabotage, I don't think the accusation of they're not being mindful of the implications of what they're saying necessarily holds true. I agree, right? Every decision an artist makes affects their works, so artists should be mindful of their decisions and what messages they're sending with those decisions. I agree, but I don't know that the complaint is that that's actually not what they're doing, right? That they're being, I don't think it's a fair criticism that they're being unmindful, because they're clearly being actually quite cautious. I would say that, right, they're being almost too cautious in what stories they're or in how they're telling these stories. Right, leaning into very kind of old-fashioned consensus narratives rather than the cutting edge of historical research. Oh, that's fair, right? Some RTSs are way worse than Age of Empires 4. I'm trying to keep the conversation at this moment on Age of Empires 4, because that's the game we just played, and because, right, without really digging into other games, it's going to be really hard to make generalizations across the genre. That's something I try really carefully to not do, is to not make claims about RTSs and how RTSs do history. It's how this RTS does history, or this franchise does history. The kind of scopes that are more manageable are more concrete. And once we build those, right, once we get those bricks, then we can start looking for parallels and building up to larger theories. But right now I want to keep it relatively focused on one thing. And Grand Chicken Lord, I do think some of this would take a lot more work, time, money. I agree. Univariation means more coding, modeling, animation, which means paying people for more time and work. Not wrong times for this, but some things might be cut for time and money rather than not being thought of. 100% agreed. Right? This is definitely things I would like to see, not things that the game is bad for not doing. And that's important context to be fair on, because making games is really damn hard. And while being rigorous about the history they are telling and the ways in which form and content are interacting, it is fair to remember to be gracious to the people making those and understand that they probably wanted to do way more than what they are actually able to do in the final product. But, the reason why I was being careful, is what if, rather than everyone speaking the same language, in the 100 Years' War campaign, for say, instead of having everyone speak French, you recorded the lines in Flemish as well. And it would basically randomly assign on each unit just a tiny flyer, because it only has to encode positional data. So just a tiny flag, 1 or 2. Does this unit speak French, or does this unit speak Flemish? I think even something like that to indicate, or, Italian, You got a three-way option. You have recorded the same dozen lines, and they're still visually clearly yours, Your visual language is almost unchanged. But you have, 3 copy-paste skin tones and 3 languages. So you're just putting a different shader on. So we're trying to minimize the amount of that work. So you get faint skin tone diversity, even though the outfits and weapons are going to be all homogeneous, and you have different languages assigned with no relationship between those two. And so you might have someone with darker skin speaking Flemish, and maybe they're Moroccan who moved to the Netherlands. That happened. Mostly a bit later, but that's okay. That's a thing that happened. And then they get embroiled in the 100 Years' War and are now serving as a French ally in the 100 Years' War, despite being Maghrebi and having been captured or voluntarily moved to the Netherlands, and so they speak Flemish. Exactly. What's his name? Oh god, I know his name. He raided Iceland. I should know his name. The Dutch guy who became a pirate lord in North Africa. That's going to bother me now. We have the power. Or Turkish raid of Iceland. Not Murat Reis. There it is, right there. Yeah, his Dutch name is Jan Jansoen, but he's Murat Reis in his base in Saleh and as a corsair. So it's neat. Someone like him would actually be. I would love to see an Age of Empires 2 or Age of Empires 3 campaign about him. Because that would be a really fun campaign. I'm not gonna lie, that would be an extremely fun naval-focused campaign. Oh yeah, Age of Empires does naval quite badly, but that's not really the point, They've got naval mechanics, may as well use them, even if it's mostly just ferrying people to and from. Anyway, what's up next on the fixing of things? Or I guess changes that we might make. With ideas of, right, the idea being Age of Empires 4, make it more historically interesting, probably a bit more historically rigorous, without totally breaking the franchise's mechanics, or completely breaking the bank. Alright. Ditch the documentary style. It's not particularly well integrated into these. Done well. It's just, I guess I could actually, let's wrap that into that. Anyway, I think that gets most of my thoughts. Right. Yeah. Yeah, potentially. I don't hate that. Right. So have like, if at the Battle of Mohi, right? This is also kind of going into the gameplay historical resonance, so let's actually wrap that in there too. Because that's a big umbrella topic that is giving us a lot of ground. So... Oh, Mohi. Have Bella the Fourth be there. Feel like a fight between armies led by people, not AIs. Is it too much to ask not to show the modern Great Wall? Like, they don't have to build their own earthwork wall, but just showing the modern one seems misleading. Correct. Lean even more into, changing mechanics for cultures. So, and KJ, remember last week I defended the Ovu, and I want to reiterate that defense of it, not because it's, right, it isn't perfect, but I do want to lean into that defense as being a pretty good solution to a very difficult mechanical problem. Right? Namely, the Ovu doesn't just produce stone, it also provides an inspiration to the any buildings nearby it, which lets them do more stuff. Which means that it encourages the player to make an Ovu the centerpiece of the camp, which is historically sound. However, it also runs into the problem of if you had ordinary wood harvesting plus that, it would be pretty damn busted. And so they are paring back what they're able to, or how you can gather wood, which is the resource needed to enable, or sorry, gather stone, because that is the resource you need in order to enact the AoE4's benefits, while maintaining a visual congruity with a actual thing being, you know, a giant cairn, and providing a suite of mechanical benefits that will encourage the player to set up their camps in a historically, in a similar way to what is historically attested. Right. I actually like the idea of everything is mobile less than I like the AoE4 as stone generator. The reason why is that, right, it ends up severely understating the semi-permanent or permanent structures of pre-Empire Mongolia in favor of just going like, oh yeah, right, we're just gonna like pick up and move anywhere kind of randomly, which that is fine for a military camp, right? We know that is fine for the military camps of the Mongol expansion, but it's bad for the nomadic pastoralist camps, which they seem to be conflating, right? Because we know that even the super nomadic ones would have a handful of summer places where they'd camp and stay at pasture, and then a handful of winter ones, and they'd move between those two, and so you'd end up with more permanent structures ending up in those that will be reoccupied seasonally. So, I don't... it's not quite as simple as that, but overall, right, I do like the mess with core progression to represent a culture, and try and do interesting things to get the player to act like a culture, or create things that look like a culture, or that somehow represent a core idea in the game developers' minds of this culture, while also still being balanced. Still being balanced is really hard, but overall I think, as far as that goes, that's actually been quite successful, though they had to nerf the French. Right, the Abbasids are the ones that I think executed this best, where it's just like build buildings. You have 1 gigacity. Build more buildings. And so you're just gonna build up the House of Wisdom and create the megacities that are supposed to be like Baghdad, or Damascus, or Alexandria, or Cairo, or something. Right, or Saleh, or Tunis, or, you know, I could keep going. Cordova. Anyway, have we got any other ideas, chat? I think that's got most of my ideas thus far. So, Savaged, they do not have any campaigns set in the Middle East at the moment, but the Abbasids are a playable culture, and they are the whole idea of the Abbasids is that they are urbanized as heck. So your progression landmarks is just the House of Wisdom, and you just go keep adding wings onto the House of Wisdom, and then the main benefit that it provides is that the more buildings are next to each other or the House of Wisdom, the more benefits everything in the culture gets. So you just build houses, these big messy streets of houses, in order to keep expanding the area of influence of the House of Wisdom. So it's this intensely urbanized area, which I think is really gosh darn cool. I like that way of doing it. And then the wonder is Al-Aqsa, so our big North African mosque. I'll be curious to see if they put a if they get a campaign in the in an expansion down the road that is going to be either the Abbasids in some way, perhaps a crusade one. I would not be shocked if there is a crusade campaign down the road. I'd also not be shocked if one of the first of the next wave of cultures to be introduced will be the Ottomans. I would not be super shocked about that. Yeah, Red Chicken Lord, the way they sort of implied Mongols left Europe because Ogadai Khan died, rather than admitting that there are multiple theories already covered on something you've written. So I am going to make an explicit note of this, of contextualize includes when there are competing historical theories. Mention that. It's fine. We're allowed to be... We don't have to be objective here. Yeah. It's also super important to me, right? That was why I had that nice long digression highlighting the theories, because I had a suspicion that the documentary style, which, by the way, see also, ditch documentary style. I suppose there is a cheap way. Let me propose a really cheap way of doing this. What if several villages from different cultures were stacked? What if several villages from different playable cultures were within the same location for an NPC town, as a way to represent cultural diversity? Super jank, doesn't work in player-built towns, but it would at least highlight the idea of writing in a like medieval urban setting, or medieval European urban setting, the idea of there being different quarters that may or may not be fairly separated from the rest of the city. Jewish quarters, for instance, are often fairly separated and have their own town center, and their own kind of central market streets. But other places may be more integrated, and have just like different styles bumping into each other within the same spot. So if you just like put several tiny villages on top of each other in order to create a town, and only one of them might have a town center, right? You pick one, it has a town center. So you have like a French and an English and a Holy Roman Empire all in the same spot, and the French are the one with the town center. But then you just end up with a bunch of different people all wandering around, all being color-coded as either, you know, unaligned or just non-hostile yellow. But that might be really cool. I don't know how well that actually would work. Would the AI get confused? But it'll be worth experimenting with. Especially as more playable cultures get added and there's more room for options. It'd be cool to see what they can do with that. Anyway, that gives us a nice long list of things that they could do differently. That would just be, I think, what actually spelling this out has done for me, chat, is it's highlighted that they're on the right track. Ooh, that would be fun. That would be fun for, like, not Age of Empires, Grand Chicken Lord, but a really interesting RTS mechanic to have some sort of immigration. You've got some immigrants from somewhere, and then you can build one instance of their faction's buildings. Or, right, you could assign those people, you could have those people, like, go to... I don't know, what if you had you basically, you know, you got an immigrant. This is not subtle. This is not subtle at all, and it would probably be pretty game-breaking. But within Age of Empires, you had a unit that was immigrant from culture. You do certain things, you get that. You can then assign that person to any building in order to unlock that culture's tech for that building for that age. Like, wouldn't be it's not subtle. Or even just unlock, I guess, then it would just be put it on the blacksmith is OP. But if that's too strong, turn it into you get one random tech from that culture, from that age. Does that make any sense? I'm curious on your thoughts, chat. Because that's definitely the spicy change, right? That is pushing Age of Empires a bit farther without necessarily breaking, right? Without totally breaking the military focus of Age of Empires, giving something that makes the player have to interact with the idea of that this city has multiple cultures in it. Right, but Grand Chicken Lord, right, I like that idea, right? Something more like Civ, where building trade routes, having certain policies, could bring different, could help bring different neighboring cultures to your city. I like that, but that is hard to do in Age of Empires. Trade routes are fine, right? I definitely think it would be like a condition would be have X many traders go into another culture. Right? How many if you're having like 5 or 10 traders all going to the same market, and preferably have it be a market that's far away, well, that's encouraging a risky, fairly exploitable strategy, but might unlock a really powerful tech that lets you just mix and match pretty hard. The question is, right, that's definitely the spicy edge of Age of Empires abilities, but it is a cool mechanic for another game. Definitely. Don't know. It's an interesting idea. I think we got a pretty good list, though. Unless if anyone else has any other things they really want to throw out. I mean, that gives us 12 things that I'd like to see. And again, I would think the thing to reiterate here is that this has largely been reassuring that they are actually on a decent track, right? That there is a lot of good foundations in Age of Empires, that their campaigns have some issues in style and form, but that their core mechanical idea as a historical sim has more potential despite its military focus than perhaps it gets credit for. I don't know. Lots of good ideas here, chat. So, I think, on that note, we are going to call it a night. I mean, we've been going for almost 5 hours. It's getting late. So I think we're going to call it a night, chat. So, if you're watching the VOD here on Twitch or on YouTube, do consider supporting by making sure you come on over to Twitch if you're not here already, or by trying to join us live. There is a lot of cool stuff that's happening, a lot of cool things coming forward. Additionally, if you are not yet, do consider becoming a patron. We have a Patreon set up. Link will be right here. So, if you want to, control what emotes we get, or if you think there's a game that you really want to get me to talk about, that's the best way to make that happen. So do consider signing up. It helps a lot. It's going to help keep this going and keep making this channel, this stream, this show better. Anyway, next stream is going to be on Thursday. It's going to be about 6 p.m. And we're going to have our very own watcher, Emmett222, if you're a familiar of Twitch chat. They are going to be joining me for some God's Will Fall, which is a Hades-like, we'll say, but Irish. Well, Irish. Very generically, vaguely Celtic, also they have antlers. So, if you are curious about the Celts in games, especially video games, but also, tabletop, general, that whole adaptational mess, you don't want to miss this one because Watcher is finishing up a PhD in Irish literature and is one of the top world experts in adaptation of the Celts in modern media. So it's going to be real good. It's going to be a real good time. Also, Watcher is a very dear friend of mine, and I am super excited to have them back on. So, you don't want to miss it, so I'll see you all in 2 days. That's Thursday. If you're watching on YouTube, I will have this up before Thursday, I swear. I promise. I'm gonna get it done. Trust. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this stream. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your nights, and I'll catch you all on the next one, okay? Bye!